All right, so get this. Someone wants us to do a deep dive on what it would look like to take Wicked the Musical and drop it right into the Warhammer 40K universe.
Ambitious.
Definitely ambitious.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine green skin power armor, maybe even a chainsword solo during defying gravity?
That's a fun image, but let's face it, the 41st Millennium isn't exactly known for its no place like home vibe.
Right, more like no place for heretics.
Exactly. The Imperium of Man is all about purity, tradition, and crushing heresy. So think Oz, but way more Gothic cathedrals and spaceships held together by prayers.
And probably a lot less singing about friendship.
Oh yeah, way more chanting about the God Emperor.
So where does that leave Elphaba? You know, the misunderstood, magically gifted one.
Elphaba. In the Imperium, she wouldn't just be an outcast. She'd be a psyker, someone with a connection to the warp and raw power.
Okay, hold on. Warp Psychers, could you back up a second and explain that for anyone who hasn't memorized every bit of 40K lore?
Sure. So basically, the warp is this dimension of psychic energy, pure emotion, and, well, demons. And psychers can tap into that power.
They're dangerous.
It's unpredictable. In the Imperium, they need psychers to navigate spaceships and fight wars with their minds, but they're also terrified of them.
So Elphaba, with her incredible powers, would be walking a tightrope. Needed but feared.
Right. And remember, in Wicked, she's branded Wicked because she's different. In the Imperium, she'd be a heretic, a danger to society itself.
So instead of a bucket of water, they might drop an orbital bombardment on her.
That's the 40K way, unfortunately.
Wow. So instead of fighting for acceptance, she's fighting for survival against the most powerful empire in the galaxy.
Exactly. It changes the whole story. But wait, we haven't even talked about Glinda.
Oh yeah, the popular bubbly one. How does she fit into this grim, dark setting?
This is where we have to get creative. Remember, the Sisters of Battle, fanatically devoted warriors, the Emperor's most loyal soldiers.
I'm starting to see where you're going with this.
Picture Glinda not in a sparkly dress, but in power armor, wielding a flaming chainsword, purging heretics.
Whoa, Glinda going from good witch to holy warrior. That's a twist.
And it makes their friendship even more complicated. Elphaba, the psyker outcast fighting for freedom, and Glinda, the devout sister of battle sworn to uphold the Imperium.
That's some serious drama. But what about Fyro? He's supposed to be the charming prince.
A prince wouldn't really fit here. But how about a rogue trader? They're these independent explorers operating on the fringes of the Imperium, dealing with Xenos and sometimes bending the rules.
So he's more like Han Solo, a bit of a scoundrel.
Exactly. Imagine Fyro navigating the perils of the galaxy, caught between his loyalty to the Imperium and his feelings for Elphaba.
Now that's interesting. And we haven't even touched on the wizard.
Oh, he's got a role to play. What if he's a corrupt inquisitor manipulating everyone for his own gain?
Inquisitor. That sounds ominous. You're gonna have to explain that one.
Think of them as the Imperium's secret police, judge, jury, and executioner all rolled into one. They root out heresy, hunt down rogue psychers, and they have a ton of power.
So the wizard isn't just some guy with illusions. He's a serious threat.
Definitely. And if he's pulling the strings, this whole story just got a lot more dangerous.
Okay, so we've got Psyker Elphaba on the run, Sister of Battle, Glinda Road Trader Fierro, and a shadowy Inquisitor wizard pulling the strings.
And that's just the beginning.
There's so much more to explore, like the music, the themes, but I think we need to take a break and let all this sink in for a bit.
The 41st Millennium doesn't reveal its secrets all at once.
You got that right. We'll be back to dive deeper into this wicked 40K world, so stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Wicked in the Warhammer 40K universe.
Things are getting pretty intense.
Yeah, we've got Elphaba the Psyker facing off against the entire Imperium, Glinda wielding a flaming chainsword, and Fierro running around like a space smuggler.
It's a wild ride. But we haven't really talked about the wizard and how he fits into all of this.
You're right, he's lurking in the background, pulling strings. Remember, we're picturing him as a high-ranking Inquisitor.
So he's not just some power-hungry dude with illusions. He's got the might of the Imperium behind him.
Exactly, and that makes him incredibly dangerous, especially for someone like Elphaba. Inquisitors have a lot of ways to deal with perceived threats, and a psyker like Elphaba is a top priority. He might try to control her, use her powers for the Imperium's goals.
So instead of being celebrated for her gifts, she's being used. That's messed up.
It really twists the original story's themes. And remember, in Wicked, the wizard manipulates public opinion to make Elphaba seem evil. In the 41st Millennium, he wouldn't even need to do that.
He could just point at her green skin and her warp powers, and the Imperium would do the rest.
Exactly. She's not just fighting against one guy. She's fighting against an entire system that's designed to crush anyone who doesn't conform.
That raises the stakes. And what about Glinda? How would she react to all of this?
That's where things get really interesting. As a sister of battle, she's been indoctrinated to believe in the Imperium's righteousness. She might genuinely believe she's doing the right thing by hunting down Elphaba.
Even if it breaks her heart.
Exactly, it adds a whole new layer of conflict to their relationship. But what about Fiero, our rogue trader? How would he react?
Yeah, he's kind of a wild card.
He represents a moral gray area in this story. He is loyal to the Imperium, but he also has a rebellious streak. He wants freedom and independence.
So he's caught in the middle. He could expose the wizard and help Elphaba escape. But defying the Imperium is incredibly dangerous.
And let's not forget, he's a rogue trader. He's used to bending the rules, maybe even working with Xenos if it suits his needs.
That's a tough choice, and it makes their relationship even more complicated.
Definitely. A psyker on the run, a holy warrior, and a space smuggler caught in a love triangle. This is starting to sound like an epic space opera.
And we haven't even talked about the music.
Yeah.
How would those iconic Wicked songs translate to this setting?
That's the really fun part. Imagine defying gravity not as a triumphant anthem, but as a raw, almost guttural chant. Elphaba unleashing her psychic might against the Imperium. Her voice echoing with power and defiance. The melody distorted, laced with the crackling energy of the warp.
So it's less Broadway, more like industrial metal opera.
Exactly. And Popular could be transformed into a chilling propaganda piece. A chorus of indoctrinated Imperial citizens chanting about conformity and denouncing Elphaba as a heretic.
So even music becomes a weapon, a tool for control.
But it's not all darkness and manipulation. There are still moments of beauty and introspection, remember for good, that duet about the transformative power of friendship.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Imagine it as a mournful lament, a conversation between Glinda and Fiero reflecting on their choices, the paths they've taken, the sacrifices they've made.
That's heavy stuff. It's like taking the emotional core of Wicked and filtering it through the grim reality of 40K.
Exactly. It's not just about changing the setting, it's about transforming the meaning of the story itself.
And that's what makes this so interesting.
We've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore, but I think we need to take a break and let our listeners process all of this.
Good idea. We'll be back soon to dive even deeper into this Wicked 40K universe. All right, we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into this Wicked 40K mashup, but something still feels kind of off.
Yeah, we've talked about the plot, the characters, even how the grim darkness of 40K would change the whole feel, but there's one piece missing.
The music.
Exactly. Those iconic songs. How do they fit into a galaxy of war and zealotry?
Yeah, hard to imagine Space Marines belting out show tunes.
It's not about just singing the same songs, it's about transforming them. Think about defying gravity. Instead of soaring anthem, it becomes a raw, almost guttural chant. Elphaba, fueled by the warp, unleashes her power against the Imperium. Her voice echoing with defiance, the melody warped and distorted by psychic energy.
So less Broadway, more like a heavy metal concert.
More like a psychic scream echoing across the void. And then there's Popular, no more bubbly pop tune. Instead, picture a chilling propaganda piece, the masses chanting about conformity, denouncing Elphaba as a heretic.
It's almost like music becomes a tool of control, a weapon.
Exactly. But there's still room for those quieter moments of reflection. Remember for good, that duet about friendship.
Yeah, it's a powerful one.
Imagine it as a mournful lament between Glinda and Fiero. They're reflecting on their choices, the paths they've taken, the sacrifices they've made.
A reminder that even in the grimdark, there's still room for connection.
It's about taking the emotional core of Wicked and filtering it through the lens of 40K.
Changing not just the setting, but the meaning.
Exactly. So we've given you the pieces, a psyker Elphaba, a warrior Glinda, a rogue trader Fiero, and a shadowy inquisitor wizard.
All set against the backdrop of a galaxy consumed by war.
But it's up to you to fill in the blanks, to imagine those epic battles, those impossible choices, the clash of ideologies.
And to hear those familiar melodies twisted and transformed by the darkness of the 41st millennium.
So go out there and create your own version of this Wicked 40K saga.
Because in the grim darkness of the far future, there's always room for a little bit of magic, even if it's the kind that gets you branded a heretic.
And that's our deep dive for today.
Remember, in the 41st millennium, you're usually better off relying on yourself.